there's the writing component to it, right? There's just the act of being creative, like spending time and being creative, which is a version of mindfulness, right? In its own way, it's like just quiet all the noise that's going on. I'm just going to focus on this one thing. I have this prompt. I'm supposed to use a color, whatever the prompt is, and I'm going to write for 10 minutes. And there's this sort of Zen-like quality that happens where you're not aware that you're writing. And I think that has incredible value of just sort of helping a person just be within their own creativity. But then there's also, I firmly believe, and that we've done research. There's a research component which I want to talk about at some point.
Great.
Where often when you've had a traumatic life experience or a challenging life experience, that experience often has control over you. It changes your behavior, it changes the way you interact with the world. Once you are able to sit down and actually write it, you gain control over that story within words in a way that allows you to have power over that story where the story used to have power over you. And I'm sure you saw this.
Welcome to Are We Happy Yet? Where we're all about having the tough, thought-provoking conversations about what it really takes to live a fulfilling life, without buying into the latest wellness trends, miracle cures, or life hacks.
If you're someone who's curious and likes to dig beneath the surface, join us. We're here to explore why, despite having access to more information and technology than ever, studies show that global unhappiness is at a record high.
This question kept nagging at us. Why are so many of us feeling more anxious, disconnected, and lonely than ever before?
I'm Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist.
And I'm Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker.
Together, we'll challenge the quick fix advice culture and dive into the big questions about happiness, success, and well-being.
In each episode, we'll share candid conversations and personal stories, unpacking the cultural narratives that shape how we live, love, and work. No solutions, no formulas. Just honest, thought-provoking dialogue that invites you to think differently about the world around you and your place within it.
So whether you're feeling overwhelmed by the pressure to have it all figured out, or simply curious about what lies beyond the mainstream wellness conversation, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the club. You're not alone in wondering what will finally, truly make us happy. Welcome back to the Are We Happy Yet podcast. Hannah, I'm having a blast from the past to some degree today with our very special guest, Mike Henry. We can talk a little bit about how we met, and he's one of the first people I knew when I moved here to Denver.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, the Lighthouse was one of my first communities that I was a part of. So Mike Henry is many things. He is the executive director and co-founder of a very incredible organization called Lighthouse Writers Workshop. And we have had several guests from Lighthouse who are teachers and authors who work and swirl around the world of Lighthouse. Joy and David, they have both been on the podcast. He is also a poet and a nonfiction writer and an occasional teacher over at Lighthouse. There's many other things. He's a father and a partner and I feel like you bike a lot.
Yes, avid mountain biker.
Yeah, avid mountain biker. Yes, avid mountain biker.
Did you guess that, or did you?
What'd you say, Hannah?
Did you just guess that, or was that a lucky guess?
That wasn't a lucky guess. I've actually not in person, just from the distance, from afar. I've seen the biking. So thank you for being here. Welcome.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you
we're so happy to have you. Yeah,
So
good to see you too.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lighthouse. This is how I got connected to Lighthouse. When I first.
Okay. Yes.
Do you know this story?
I don't know. How did you find Lighthouse?
Okay, so I moved here and started playing music in Denver, and then I can't even remember. Somebody asked me to play Lit Fest. So I was playing Lit Fest as a musician. Right. Lit Fest, we can talk about later, is this incredible 2-week-long festival that Lighthouse puts on for the community. So cool. So I'm playing music, and then somebody asked me to start doing some outreach teaching. There was a school that needed somebody to help them put on a talent show.
Right, you started the youth program.
And I started the youth program.
Right, that's right.
And so I started working in this school, and then the teacher quit who was going to put on the they were like, come and teach.
As happens.
Yeah, as happens. They were like, come and teach for a week. And then the teacher quit and all these kids were like, but our talent show. So then I stayed on. And then somehow, I don't even know if you guys know I was working there. I just like kept working there and sent you. I sent you invoices and you paid them. So then I was working there doing some outreach, and you guys didn't have much of a youth program then, correct?
It was still growing. Yeah.
Still growing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Look at me trying to take credit for stuff.
He said you started it.
Yeah,
he didn't even know, but it makes
I'm sure you did a fabulous job. Yes.
We had a good time. Thank you. We had a good time. And then I was walking through the halls one day, popped in to say hey to you, and you said, hey, I've got this new thing that I think you would be a good person for.
Right.
And it was the beginning of the Hard Times Writing
Workshops.
Which we can talk about.
Which you were a co-founder of, which I am eternally grateful for. It's one of the most incredible programs, and it's still running.
I love that. No, I always check in on it.
Over 8 years.
I can't believe it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's our origin story.
Wow, you guys go way back.
Way back. Yeah.
We both, we're both Northerners, Northern Denverites.
We're both, we both live way the heck up here. Yep. Yeah. Where people like no man's land.
We love I-25.
Yeah. We're so into I-25.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long's it been since you guys have like actually seen each other?
Pre-COVID, right?
Definitely pre-COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, in a minute. But when we started this podcast, he was one of the first people, he and his wife, Andrea.
I remember.
I was like, let's bring them in because I really want to, I want to talk to you about your life as a poet and how important the arts are in community and why you started Hard Times and all of that stuff. So we can maybe even start there. I mean, well, actually, tell us the origin of Lighthouse.
The origin of Lighthouse.
Yes.
How far back do you want to go?
All the way.
All the way. So, all the way. So, Andrew Dupree, the program director at Lighthouse and co-founder, we met in graduate school in Boston, Massachusetts at Emerson College. She was a fiction writer. I was a poet. I used to see her around campus, and I thought she was really cute. And so we started dating. We both graduated, and then we started looking for full-time work and trying to decide what we wanted to do. We really didn't find anything, at the university systems, there was a lot of adjuncting. We were doing that a lot, and it just didn't seem like a really healthy way to live. So we just kept thinking, well, what can we do? And so we just asked ourselves the question, like, well, what if we taught workshops on our own? Because we wanted to teach. We wanted to build community. We wanted to have some time for our own writing. So what if we taught workshops on our own and just, let's see what happens. So we started in Boston, in Melrose, Massachusetts. People came to our apartment. They were very brave. They didn't know us at all. And we had this wonderful group. Our very first group, we had eight members. We had a postdoc from Japan. We had a guy getting his PhD in English literature from Northeastern. We had an accountant mom of 3, like this really interesting mix of people, and they loved it. They had such a great experience. We thought, okay, maybe we could really do this. And so we were thinking of leaving Boston. Andrea's, she went to high school here in Denver. Her mom lives here. And so we moved out to Denver and we started Lighthouse in earnest in August of 97.
Wow.
We did a couple free workshops at the library. So it's kind of full circle with
Love that.
50 people showed up, and they were our mailing list, and we called them and bugged them until we got a workshop, and then 2 workshops, and then 3, and then we hired an instructor and then another instructor. And we officially became a nonprofit in 2004, and now we're in a 13,000 square foot, 3-story building. We have over 100 instructors.
Wow.
Serve thousands of individuals of all ages, from kids 8 to 88. Anybody who wants to learn the craft can come and learn it at their own pace, however they want to learn it. If they're serious writers, they want to get published, we have programs for them. And if they just want to use writing as a way to, we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, just sort of connect with other people and connect with their own story, they can do that too. So I feel like in many ways it's really been a charmed life. It's been a wonderful experience. Yeah.
And it's very
so cool.
Yeah, it's very beloved. You know, a lot of people feel that they're...
Not everybody.
There are some people who
Some
very
people
much love Lighthouse.
I hope so.
There are. I've heard very many positive things about the community that's built there and the outreach work. You know, you can't build something big without pissing some people off,
of
you
course.
know?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you probably have, I mean, do you know how many students come through Lighthouse a year? Lots.
It's hard to say. So like, it's easier for me to talk in terms of registrations. So we'll have like 23,000 registrations. My guess is that's around 4,000 to 6,000 or 7,000 people every year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. And everything like playwriting, right? Summer camp.
Yes. All the genres. Comic book writing, experimental form, screenwriting, novel, short story, memoir, essay, poetry, everything. Yeah.
So, okay, you're building this organization, and did you have an intention of doing outreach work into the community, or is that something that evolved over time? And what moved that?
It evolved over time. It started with the Young Writers Program. So we would have parents who took the workshops and they would say, you know, my kids would love this, or you should do summer camps. You know, I would love to drop my kids off at the building. And so we started with the Young Writers Program. We had a couple of really good core instructors in the beginning. And that was really wonderful. You know, schools would invite us to come and then teachers would leave or sometimes not leave. They would stay there. It was a really wonderful experience. And it was cool because, you know, it was at the very least, it was an opportunity to connect with young writers, the next generation, and then also to give a lot of the writers who had been in our programs, who had been teaching adjunct, things like, to give them, you know, teaching opportunities outside of, you know, academia. And that was really wonderful too. And it wasn't really until much later, I think probably in the like 2015, 2016, when, you know, we started thinking, what sort of adult community outreach can we do? And, you know, just thinking like, what are some of the societal problems or even the local problems that we see? And how can creative writing, you know, play some small role in making those situations just a tiny bit better? And so I was approached by an individual whose wife worked at the Denver Public Library. He was really interested in doing some of this work. And he said, you know, maybe we can try to do something at DPL, the main branch downtown. You know, they want to do more sort of social service kind of work. And I thought this would be really cool. I think they had a yoga program. They were doing yoga and that was popular. And so they said, you know, we have all these individuals often experiencing homelessness, you know, people experience homelessness or financial hardship or just loneliness. And they're just sitting in the library all day and there's really not much for them to do. So what if we did a writing workshop? And that's really how it started. Wow. So it's kind of interesting how what happens. You know, often you have these ideas, but you don't necessarily know how to execute them. And then a built-in community finds you. And I think that's really sort of what makes it successful. So we don't have to find that community and bring that community together. It's already there and there's a need. And so that's really how the Hard Times workshop started.
Yeah.
And that was the first adult community engagement workshop that we did. You know, now we have workshops for veterans, for people living with a cancer diagnosis, all sorts of different communities. Yeah.
And did those all come about in the same way with people like approaching you with ideas or communities that wanted more support around it? Or was it more like, oh, this is the next group, this is the next group, this is the next group?
You know, I have to say, we can't really take credit for it. Often it's the communities that find us and they come and they talk to us about it. Yeah. And sometimes it's really, there's a sort of interesting, I don't know, timing is everything, right? It's like the synergy. It's like, God, I would love to do workshops with people living with a cancer diagnosis or caregivers or someone, you know, living with cancer. And then, you know, a social worker from UC Health Anschutz just calls up one day and says, you know, I'd like to do this. It's like, okay, let's do that. You know, so it's really it's been very serendipitous.
So cool.
Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts on this, especially after teaching Hard Times, but to a skeptic who would say, why does somebody experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty, why do they need creative writing? What would you say?
They so need it. You know, it's really interesting. There's the writing component to it, right? There's just the act of being creative, like spending time in being creative, which is a version of mindfulness, right? In some ways, like just quiet all the noise that's going on. I'm just going to focus on this one thing. I have this prompt. I'm supposed to use a color, whatever the prompt is. And I'm going to write for 10 minutes. And, there's this sort of Zen-like quality that happens where you're not aware that you're writing. And I think that has incredible value of just sort of helping a person just be within their own creativity. But then there's also, I firmly believe, and that we've done research. There's a research component which I want to talk about at some point.
Great.
Where often when you've had a traumatic life experience or a challenging life experience, that experience often has control over you. It changes your behavior, it changes the way you interact with the world. Once you are able to sit down and actually write it, you gain control over that story within words in a way that allows you to have power over that story where the story used to have power over you. And I'm sure you saw this at hard times over and over again, especially when they're like, oh, I'm just going to write for 10 minutes. No big deal. And they write and you say, would you like to share? And they're like, sure. And then they start reading and it's almost like they don't realize the depth and the power of what they've written. And sometimes they can't get through it, or there's this sudden breakthrough that happens in the moment. And I think that is also incredibly powerful. I find that moving just talking about it. And the other piece of that is in that small room with other individuals who have all sorts of life experiences. When you share your story with others and they say, oh my God, that happened to me, or thank you for that story, that moved me deeply. There's that point of connection. Yeah. Not just commiseration, but to the point of connection, like, oh my God, there's a fellow human being who's opened up to me. And I feel like in some ways, the writing sometimes is actually very much secondary. It's that connection that happens in a workshop like Hard Times. It's just, 10, 15, 20 people sitting around a table, just sharing their story, sharing what they've written. And I think that is incredibly powerful, especially, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like our society is incredibly alienated. We're so much more connected. That was perfect technology. We're so much more connected via technology, and we're also more alone than ever. And so I firmly believe that just that ability to connect with our other people who are often just complete strangers is incredibly powerful. And we see that over and over again. And you probably saw that a lot in Hard Times.
The other piece that I saw about, you're saying I'm watching you and you're telling I'm not alone because you're telling me your story, but then the act of being seen in your story was so profound. And people would say, well, you can't make half the workshop. We don't want to hear everybody. Whenever I got kickback, which wasn't very often, but I structured it in a way that half the workshop was people reading and sharing and giving feedback. And I would say this is most of it, right? This is me standing up and being seen by an entire group of people in a world where, for whatever reason, I don't get seen. Right. I don't get heard because I'm experiencing homelessness, or I have some sort of something that makes me less visible. So that was always a really big piece for me.
Where people consciously ignore you.
Yes.
Right? I think that too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, the times I went to your workshops, you were so good at making people feel included and seen and heard in a way, and allowed people to acknowledge that within one another. I just thought it was always so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love it when guests give me compliments.
I know. Good job.
Well, you and Joy were the core instructors at Hard Times. You were the two first instructors, and you wrote the curriculum, and you created it so perfectly. That's the curriculum we use today. So I'm forever grateful for that. Oh. So yeah, Hannah,
my pleasure.
She did a really good job.
And she really undersells herself. I didn't know Jane Thatcher Hahn had a full curriculum that's being used. Girl, you need to.
And she commanded that room also, because it could get a little unruly.
I had all these rules, like you couldn't come in until 5 minutes before the thing. They would just sit at the window and stare at me. Like I had all these boundaries and rules I put in place.
That's funny.
Where a couple times I made Mike come because I was like, well, things are getting weird. I need you to come and just sit in on things.
Yes. Yeah.
What is it about the writing that disarms people or offers them connection? Because in my mind, I'm like, oh God, I would be so anxious to share my writing because I would think that it sucks, right? So what is it in these groups that you think the writing disarms people and allows them to connect at a deeper level?
Well, good question. I want to make sure there's two things that come to mind. First thing is, and this is something the writer Andre Dubus III often says. He wrote The House of Sand and Fog. He's an amazing writer, just a generally lovely human being. He says often you need to write, you end up writing the thing that you don't know that you know. And so it's a way of familiarizing yourself with who you are. And I think that's incredibly important. So I think what's amazing about the writing is, and it's the rules that are set up. It's sort of like, we're going to write for a period of time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It kind of,
we would do like 10 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. And it's a prompt. When I teach workshops like this, to me, the more random, the better, because people are like, I can't write from that. And they do. And then, you set the rules, which is what you write doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. You can go off on as many tangents as you like. The only goal is to keep the pen or pencil or keep the sentence moving across the page. That's the only rule. And I think that frees people up a lot more often, more powerfully than I think you'd often think.
Yeah, I do. And I think that that's really what people need more than they need instruction about. They need to be freed up first, right? Exactly. And so I think that was, and I think a lot of Lighthouse teachers have this focus of getting out of your own way, getting out of your own head, getting out of my writing sucks and I can't share it. I think that's a lot of what a good writing teacher does. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Like it doesn't, and it can suck. It's okay. And you can share it with us too. And I think often what happens is you have that brave soul. So like, I'll read first and then they read and people are like, oh, that was okay. Not that people are so judgmental, but it's like, I can share my writing too. Or they're like, oh, that was cool. They talked about a rabbit. I had a rabbit in my piece, and so then they just they become less self-conscious and then they want to share, especially when I think they see the feedback, like the positive feedback that they get from the rest of the group. Yeah. It allows people to be bold, I guess.
Yeah. So it's like less about the writing and more about the experience, like less what you're producing with your writing and more about the experience of it and sharing it.
Yes, that's very true. I think often though, the writing is incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, just surprising and fresh often. You'll get these just very natural pieces that come out with, in just 10 to 30 minutes, whatever. And I think it's really, you enjoy, and then the instructors now are also very, very adept at saying, what I loved about this piece was, you can certainly talk about the risks that a person took or the heart of it, but also, I love the alliteration that you used or this image that kept reappearing. Because often they sort of just are natural at crafting a piece. And that has always been a little bit surprising to me. But sometimes it's like, that's publishable. You should just, it's ready to go.
Yeah, I think there was this concept of like, for myself as well, of like, let's go out into the community and give a gift to the community, or we think this can help and support people and we know this is important. And then, of course, for me as a teacher, I ended up getting so much out of it and learning so much about writing and the community. But then I think as Lighthouse started to see the writing that was coming from the community, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like people were like, what is happening out there? Like, this is incredible writing. And it was people living in homeless shelters. It was people
living in their
cars, just living on the bus at night. There were all these amazing stories about Colfax, East Colfax, and then like Sancho's Broken Arrow and all of this stuff that it was just, I think it was just a lot of really like vibrant lived experience. And there's obviously lots of amazing writing at Lighthouse in the paid classes, as I guess you would call them, or what classes you sign up for that aren't the community. Yeah. But the community writing, I think, is pretty. It's just really spectacular. And then you guys did a great job of starting to put out anthologies and doing some public installations. And
I'd love to do more of that. That's one of the things I'd like to get back to. Like, at one point we did this thing. We made fake parking signs with some of the writing that occurred in hard times, and we'd publish them, and we'd go. Dan Manzanares, our former community engagement person, he and I just went on Colfax and we just hung up these signs, and we didn't ask for permission. And they were up for about a year and a half.
Oh my God, I love that!
Wow.
And I think 9 News did a piece on it. It was a really long time ago, and it was just really cool, like to try to give the community these surprising, unexpected literary experiences, which was I thought really neat. And of course, the writers are so proud like,
yeah,
you know, published on
mm-hmm.
on a parking sign on Colfax. It was really cool. And the anthologies, I love the anthologies. And every year I just think the quality is just, is so strong. And like you said, it just, sometimes the raw stories are so incredibly moving. And one of these years we're going to win the Colorado Book Award for anthology. I just know it.
I believe that.
We keep applying every year.
Good.
We've been a finalist a bunch of times. So we're gonna keep trying with that. Yeah.
Well, what I'm hearing is perhaps like it allows to center an experience that maybe normally wouldn't be centered, right? Like someone wouldn't listen to this person's story or think that it could be beautiful, right? Like it really it really centers these experiences that maybe normally we wouldn't pay attention to.
That's exactly right. And, you know, with the anthology, I think there's something great in that. So then the participant actually gets, you know, published, and we pay everybody who submits the anthology and it ends up in there. So they're a published writer. And I think there's that's a little sort of medal that they can, you know, they can hang on their lapel, which I think is also really, I think it's really cool to be able to do that. I would love to try to build a greater audience for the writing. That's been a little bit more challenging. It was one of our original goals. You know, with the parking signs, with the anthologies and things like that. But someday we're going to get there, I think. Yeah.
That's a worthy goal though, right? To get those stories out to a broader audience. I mean, audience building is historically very hard for all of us, right? In many ways, but
right. And so much has changed. And I think, you know, our original idea was like, you know, homelessness is a stigma, a societal stigma, especially in Denver, you know, in the late 2019, you know, 2018, 2019, when we started these workshops. Can we destigmatize that? So individuals say, you know what, my taxpayer dollars should go towards supporting this, or toward building more shelters, or toward helping people get off the streets. And so we thought that telling the story would actually be a powerful way to do that. And I think there's probably been some success along that route, but you know, there's still a lot more work to be done, I think.
Yeah. Why do you think, just generally, going back to this like fear of like reading your work, why do we feel like we have to have such great writing to share it? Like, what's the deal? Like, why are we all so scared to claim that we're a writer? Or
oh, that's a great question.
Like, what is, because I have the same, I mean, and I've taught for Lighthouse, and I still am like, here's my writing, you know?
I'm still there.
Yeah.
I have a book out, but you don't want to read it.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah, don't even bother.
You know, it's an interesting thing. I think writers tend to be just sort of super modest, I guess. Not all writers, right?
I wouldn't say I'm super modest.
Okay, all right. Well,
but you
speaking for myself. You know, I remember we used to do, you know, we'll do book fairs and things like that, and we'll have a table like at AWP and the Rocky Mountain Book Festival, which was years and years ago. You were probably not born yet. And people would come up and we'd say, "Oh, are you a writer?" And they say, "No, but I write." And it was like, well, writers are people who write. You know what I mean? And so I think part of that is the way that we just commodify everything in our culture. So it's like, if you're not really a writer unless you're getting paid to be a writer or even making a living. And there are very, very few people who do that. And so I feel like that stigma or that sense is changing gradually. But there are still sort of doors you feel like you have to walk through in order to legitimately see yourself as a writer, you know? And I think some of that is just what's, you know, taught in schools. I don't really know how it's taught, you know, these days. You know, our daughters went through, and it wasn't as regimented as it was when I was a kid. But it's still like, you know, you have to be grammatically correct. You have to do this and this, double space your pages, you know, all that, you know, writing all that stuff. And I still think there's a little bit of that. So there's a kind of whether it's intentional or not, there's a certain feeling of gatekeeping that's still around. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the question, right? Like, when do we get to call ourselves whatever we are, an artist, a writer, a therapist? Like, I think there's that question. I think what you just pointed out is accurate. In our culture, a lot of times it's, do I make money doing this? Well, that's like the pass go. That's how you qualify to be this. But what you just said is, a writer is a person who writes, right?
Yeah. And, you know, for teachers, like when we were looking for jobs, it was like, oh, if you don't have a PhD, you're not going to get on a tenure track. You're not going to get a tenure track job. You know, MFAs are sort of frowned upon. And I think in some ways they still are a little bit.
In the academic world,
in the academic world,
okay.
yeah, in academia. And it's, I mean, and also it's that, and B, it's impossible to get a job in academia. You know, it's just, you see English departments just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so it's more challenging all the time.
But for reference, I mean, some of the teachers at Lighthouse have very celebrated works.
Oh,
correct?
They're incredible. Oh, yeah. Oh, so they're accomplished. Yes.
These are accomplished writers who, I think the fantasy might be like, I could sit around and write all day, which, and not do other work, which is great for the people who can do it.
Right.
But of the musicians and writers that I know most intimately, they all are teaching. You gotta hustle. They're teaching, exactly. They're teaching. So,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I think just to give people perspective, like, you can have a day job, you can do the hustling,
and you can find it rewarding too, right? I mean,
totally.
Exactly. And I think what I love about our faculty is they are so dedicated and they're such good teachers, and they are also such good writers as well. And so the idea that we could actually give them a possible piece of a career, I just find incredibly heartwarming. And just, that's one of the things that I really feel like is part of our mission too, is to, is because, there are so many talented writers out there, but they just can't find like a full-time teaching gig. And so, they can come to Lighthouse and teach as much as they want. Yeah. And I wish we could pay them, as much as you could make teaching at Princeton or wherever. But, we try to do the best we can, because I feel like in some ways we're helping nurture their careers too, and allowing them to be in a community of fellow writers, which often, you get your MFA, you get your PhD, your degree, whatever it is, and you're done, and you sail off into the sunset, and that built-in community just sort of dissolves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think creatives will always need community, right? Thrive in community.
Always, yes.
And then it is, when I worked full-time as a musician, I was just barely, I couldn't find a way to make it work. Lots of people do.
Right.
And so it is a gift to be able to have, something that sustains you. You're almost your own patron, and then you can kind of go and do your work. Yeah,
exactly. And to paraphrase or maybe quote Thomas Lux in one of my favorite poems, you do it because you love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to someone who doesn't consider themselves a creative or a writer? Why is writing and creativity important?
Man, that's a really good question. I think, and maybe this sounds a little bit, histrionic or a little bit hubris. I think language is our most common, storytelling is our most common form of connecting with other people, and creativity. Obviously visual art I think is also very primary too, but we learn how to survive. We learn how to be, citizens. We learn how to be community members. We learn how to be human beings by telling one another stories. Right. It's almost in our DNA. I firmly believe that. And so language is the medium that we use, and language is used in, 1,000 different ways that are essential. And so I think it's that. And also, a baby doesn't learn how to draw a dog, but a baby learns to point and go dog, right? You know what I mean? So that's how primary it is. It's the first thing that we learn as, when we're super young. So I just think that is kind of where I sort of come from with that. It also just travels well. Anybody can write. You learn how to write in grade school. You learn how to read in grade school. It's so essential in how you figure out the world.
Okay, so it's 2025.
Can't believe it. Yeah.
Everything is free to some degree, right?
Okay.
Tell us about. That's coming from a musician standpoint, right?
Okay.
I have to give my, if I'm making something, I'm giving it away for free.
Right.
Tell us what it's like to be a poet in 2025.
Wow.
Is there how do you do that?
Same old for me.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
I'm not really good at the biz, as they call it.
Yeah.
Not real good at, submitting and, lining up readings and stuff like that, so that's sort of just like anecdotal. It's like, oh yeah, somebody wants, I'll do a reading. I'm doing a reading, I think, in April at the Boulder Bookstore.
Great.
For the Colorado Poets Center. I'm pretty excited about that. Hopefully somebody will show up. I'm working on a manuscript. I've been working on it forever. It's sort of like, oh, it's my new manuscript. And you look at, the date that the file was created. It's like 2018. It's like, oh my God. So time flies. Yeah. So to me, it's just about the practice and holding on as much as I can to carving out time for that practice, which I don't do enough. You probably feel the same way.
Absolutely.
With all of your creative endeavors. It's like, why don't I get up at 5:30 in the morning and write for an hour and a half? I don't know. And then not to beat yourself up about that, right? So trying to keep that as a practice at least a couple of days a week, because I know, I was telling Andrea, my wife, this the other day, and she probably knows, it's like, if I'm not writing, I'm just not happy as I am when I am writing. And I'm probably a little grumpier and I probably don't physically feel as well. I don't know. I really firmly believe that I'm just a better person when I write. And so I think, ultimately I write for myself, all the things that we talked about with hard times, the power that it had. I mean, that's what I experienced when I was a angst-ridden undergraduate student, biology major, and then I switched biology to English Lit, and I signed up for a poetry workshop, once I went into therapy. So we can talk about that.
It's the gateway drug. It's the gateway drug.
And wasn't very good poems, but the therapy was really helpful, and the writing was really helpful. It saved me, and I think I keep coming back to that. Really, it's just it's kind of who I am. It's the way I sort of embrace the world. So, does that answer your question? I don't know. Yeah,
exactly. I think it's what you're talking about is like a way of being, a way of being the world, a way of conceptualizing, a way of showing up. And I think that it's really easy to say like, well, how are you doing the business? Or how are you, what does it mean to be a poet? Like, can you sell poetry now? Like those kinds of questions,
I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the same for a lot of artists, right? It's challenging. And I love the concept of like, you will do it first for you. Sounds like.
Oh yeah. I mean, do you when you play music, could you do it first for you?
It always starts out that way.
Okay.
And then I'm like, where's the people?
Right.
Where's the audience? Right. But it always starts out really, really personal. Right. Yeah. And that's how I did it when I was in middle school learning to play the guitar, right? Was singing and writing songs for myself. And then a few of my albums were, just the birth of a breakup or those kinds of things. Yeah. But I think for me, what happened is then I was like, well, what does it mean to be a musician? Shouldn't I be touring and making money and recording? And shouldn't I have an audience? And I think that got really confused for me.
Yeah.
And then I got discouraged because I'm not Taylor Swift. In case you were wondering, we have strong feelings on this podcast. We have strong feelings. I don't know if we're ready to share them with our audience yet, Hannah.
That's I'm more scared to share our Taylor Swift feelings than our political. Well, we share that. So.
People feel very strongly about her. Yeah, we'll keep it to ourselves for now.
But what I'm hearing that's striking me is it's the way that I do my self-care. It's the way that I take care of my mind and my body. The thing for me, and I'm from the backwoods of West Virginia. So I just want to name that. I wasn't raised really in a creative place or where creativity was really appreciated. So my question is okay, people have their thing, right? Whether it's people working out and going to the gym for their self-care, or they do therapy for their self-care. Why is writing and art not taken as seriously to help someone with their wellness and self-care? And again, that could be my own bias because I come from a place where it's hunting and watching college football as a self-care. So it's like the opposite swing of the pendulum. But I just wonder why it's looked upon as like frivolous or not necessary. It's like the first thing to be cut from a program or a budget when like it's saving people.
Wow. Yeah. Because of money, capitalism. I don't know, right? I mean, how does it help you earn more money? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's really cynical, I think, in some ways. I think also just our culture. Like, I know in the UK, they give out art prescriptions now. Like, so you can go to a doctor, like, I'm feeling, sort of sad, blah, blah, blah. You go to therapy.
Stop
and they say, okay, well, here's your prescription. You need to go to 4 art museums in the next month. So they actually prescribe, or they'll say, you need to journal every day. And that's part of what they're sort of experimenting with. And it's like, why don't we do that here? Speaking of West Virginia, do you know the writer Chris Offutt?
No.
You should read Chris Offutt. Okay. Yeah. He's really good.
Chris Offutt.
Chris Offutt.
Does he write about West Virginia?
Yes, he does.
Oh, good.
How do you call it? The holla? The holler?
The holla.
The holla.
Yeah.
He writes about that. Yeah. Really, he's a really interesting character, short story writer. He wrote a memoir, not super popular. Maybe this will resonate with you or not. It's called The Same River Twice, which I thought was actually a beautiful memoir. So that's your prescription.
I'm going to do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think you're right about you can't capitalize on people making art in their basement.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, and the wellness industry being this just sort of like big turning bloated sort of like money making capitalist thing. If you buy this, or if you do certain things this way that somehow a person can profit off of, then it becomes identified as wellness. I mean, it's like that.
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow and her whole Goop situation. All that stuff, there's big money to be made in wellness because people want to feel good.
Commodify it.
Yeah. And people will pay for that because it doesn't feel good to be disconnected and to feel these things you feel when you're not being as creative. So I think that's a great point. Like, all of this stuff that I'm going to do in here later, nobody is going to make money off of that.
Right.
So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I wonder too, like the perfectionist piece, like I have to be good at it, like being a barrier to entry too, right? Like, I mean, so I'm thinking like, okay, capitalism, it's like painting. What was that thing that was the big deal? Like painting and wine for a while. Like people would go
wine and like
which is great, right? But like my thing is like you have to be drinking to do that. And why? Because like probably you wouldn't go sober. Maybe some people would, but how much of it being this performance based has to be good? I have to produce this good thing. Is that like stopping people from just sitting down and writing or coloring or doing whatever they want to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because there is a social piece to that, right? We're going to drink. I'm going to bring all my friends. We're going to have this experience, so that they're tying into a little bit of the social piece of it, which I think is also really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're also like, you'll feel better if you drink,
Well, it's probably more fun. And also, I mean, you might be more free with the...
You might feel more. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, you said you had some research that you wanted to talk about.
So it's funny. It sounds like I just sit around and receive all these really interesting people wanting to collaborate. But anyway.
It's a dream.
So one day I'm sitting in my office and our admin person comes up and said, there's a doctor on the phone and he wants to talk to you. He's looking for a collaborative partner for this research study around arts. And I was like, well, patch him through. So his name is Dr. Mark Moss. He was the head of critical pulmonary care at UC Health Anschutz. And he, what he noticed there in his work was that the rates of turnover and burnout and dissociation and feelings of PTSD among his critical care staff, from therapists through nurses to doctors, was astronomical. And the turnover rate was around 25% year over year. So every 4 years, like an ER department would just have a completely new staff. And he saw the impact of these, how people were suffering, and also the financial impact on the hospitals, right? To have to replace all those people, or ship nurses in from another town and put them up on a hotel, all those kinds of things. It was he just thought it was really ridiculous. So he started thinking about ways, what kinds of interventions that can happen. And he came across National Endowment for the Arts funding proposal that aligns science entities, which could be universities, could be hospitals, all sorts of things, with arts groups to measure, like in a scientific way, the impact of arts enrichment on whatever, right? So, and one of the things about the NEA study is that you have to partner with a local arts nonprofit. So he just called Lighthouse, and I think he probably searched, did a web search and found that we did these workshops in the community and things like that. So he's like, I want to apply for this NEA study. I need a partner. And I'm thinking about he calls them modalities, 4 art forms.
Oh,
right? He's a doctor.
He's using his doctor speech. I get it.
Absolutely brilliant guy. So creative writing, visual art, dance, and music.
Oh, cool.
And so we worked on the grant proposal for a couple of months. We applied. The NEA funded it. This is back before COVID. And so we were going to start our first cohort literally in March of 2020. And we're like, well, we'll just, wipe down the services, et cetera, et cetera. And then, the world shut down. And so we paused it for a while, and we started the workshops probably like 6 or 8 months after that. And it's been an incredible experience. Like I've always, we know the impact that this arts practice can have on individuals. We've seen them just physically change, just sit up straighter, just, more confident, just, dealing with their life experiences. But now we have, it's a control group study. So it's like, it's legit.
Very fancy.
We have a biostatistician.
Wow.
She did all the things, like 8, I think, measurements of sort of mental health, like, full on stuff. And so, the improvements along, dissociation, depression, PTSD, intention to quit, and connection to like their sort of why they got into medicine in the first place, like all of those things are markedly improved, like 20%, 30%, 40%. So we actually have this data now. We've been running the study for over 4 years now. And it's been so great to have that data. There was another doctor, like we'll give presentations, in the medical field, which I actually love. It's really kind of such a fascinating culture. And one doctor said, this is amazing. Like if this were a drug, you could probably ask to get it fast tracked for approval from the
With
FDA.
this person,
It's not effective, and that might be a little bit of histrionic, but it works. I believe it. And so it's been really cool. And now hospitals have found out about this research, and they're saying, we don't really want to necessarily be a part of the research. We want you to come in and do these workshops with our staff, because our turnover and our rates of depression and, all those things are really, really high. So it's been really cool. It's called the Colorado Resilience Arts Lab, or Resiliency Arts Lab. So we call it CORAL for short.
So fascinating.
Yeah, it's cool.
Is there something online we can link in the notes when we?
Yeah, there's a website.
Great.
There's a website.
We'll put all that on the notes so people can learn more about it. And
and it's a collaboration with UC Health and Shoot Center and the Ponzio Creative Arts Therapy Center at Children's Hospital. So it's 2 hospitals and Lighthouse. It's
so
really
cool.
It's really cool.
Is there any hypothesis as to how or what the mechanism of action is, or why they're seeing pretty profound outcomes with that? Again,
it's what, we were talking about with Hard Times. It's that people are coming to terms with their story. Like when I taught the first couple of cohorts, I would say you don't have to write about the workplace, but you certainly can. At some point I will ask you to, but you can write about your childhood, whatever. And people wrote about all sorts of things. But, it's interesting. It's such a fascinating culture. Healthcare professionals have dedicated their lives to helping others, and they're not very good at helping themselves, at taking care of themselves. And that's the culture. It's like, a patient died, a patient that you've been taking care of for several weeks that you really bonded with died. An hour later, they're gone. The room has been cleaned, and you don't get to talk to anybody about it. Nobody asks you how you feel about it. You don't even get to say goodbye, And so I think there's a certain culture there that, this arts enrichment kind of works against. But what we've seen is that people are just so ready for it. And again, they have the stories that they want to tell. They need to connect to their emotions. And then again, I think even more powerfully, they connect with one another because they don't talk to each other on the floor, at work very much about this sort of things that make them sad, and then also there's an added divide between doctors and nurses often. And so I always loved it when I had a couple of doctors in the workshop, because it was like they were sort of these exotic figures, and all the nurses would be like, are you going to share your writing? And it was really kind of an interesting to see them sort of break through those barriers and see each other as human beings. And I think that was really, that's the crux of it.
We can cut this, but like it just makes me think, and I know it's a little conspiratorial, but like now we have AI doing our fucking like writing and stuff. It's like, how much more disconnect? Like, I don't know, like how far are we going to go with this shit? Like,
I don't know.
Sorry, that was just my rant.
No,
like, it's
think it's really interesting.
I mean, like I've talked to some friends who are like, they teach at the university, and they're like, why? I ask you to write an essay about, a profound experience you've had, you're an 18-year-old, whatever, and you can have AI write it. It's like, that's not the point. The point is not the greatest. The point is actually to explore a story and figure out how to shape it.
Right.
And they find it really incredibly frustrating,
It's like we're trying to short circuit everything. Like, okay, it's about the experience, not the final product, but like everything in this culture is final product. And we're always like, it's like a snake eating its own tail, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
I think even some of the way that we consume and sell art does that too, where it's so product focused, right? And to this point of like, what does it mean to even be a writer, poet, musician, any of these things? It starts to become all product focused. And then I think people get confused, and then I think they get too scared to go into the process of it.
Yeah.
Joy Sawyer always talks about how good writing is the same as good therapy, because it's specific and it's like concise and you can understand it and it tells the story and it like makes connections.
Builds to something, there are characters in it.
Yeah, exactly. You guys would say it much more beautifully than I would, but no, I think that's to the point of these college students, like they're missing out on that whole internal experience.
That learning, right?
The learning, the claiming. And we find this with our clients too, that a lot of them just want to be on the other end and feel good. And I get that. Like, you don't want to be anxious. You don't want to be depressed. Like, I get all of that. And it's a long road.
Oh, boy.
Right?
Never ending.
Yeah, right? You never arrive.
There, hello, friend.
Isn't that the way? Oh, I know. Yeah. I know. My joke is always like, when my clients are, I can't believe I'm talking about my mom again. I'm like, listen, here's the like 3 things that come up in all my therapy, all the times I do psychedelics, and in all my art. The same stuff's coming back around all the time. Yeah.
This is maybe off topic, but I think I'm curious. Like, I've been really interested. Joy and I had a good friend and a teacher to both of us, Chris Rancic, poet Chris Rancic. He was Denver Poet Laureate for a long time. He passed away way too young. I miss him desperately. He would sometimes say to me, like, we would share work and he would give me feedback. I would give him feedback on his. And he would say, don't squeeze all the juice out of the poem. Don't overcraft it. And I've been sort of interested in that. Like, I'm not a first draft, best draft kind of person, but I'm like, all right, I'm just going to let it be and not over prescribe what it is. And I'm curious, like, it seems like music, especially live music, is just built for that in a lot of ways. Like when the music gets a little bit raw or just a little less polished. I mean, that's rock and roll, right? I mean, I don't know. So like, have you had that experience? Do you explore that in a way ever as an artist? Yeah,
definitely. I think the thing that's interesting is the better of a musician you are, the more capable you are of
do that stuff.
You can improvise in a way that, that's a skill that I've been working on for a long time. So if you see a great jazz performance or a great rock and roll solo, and that person hasn't practiced that before, you're seeing them in real time respond to everything around them, I think, including, there's a million things, the lights and the stage and the audience and the way the sound is that night and all of those pieces.
Right. Yeah.
But I definitely think, there's a energy that I can get when I'm performing live that I cannot get in a recording studio or in the basement writing music, you know? Right. So I think there's definitely like I think all musicians to some degree can interact with the audience in that way. Mm-hmm. But you have to know your song really well to have the freedom, right? Because if I go in and I'm like, I sort of know this song.
Know the rules before you break them.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
The writer's saying,
it's kind of like the more you know, the better prepared you are. The more open and exploratory you can be. Yeah.
There's something, I don't know, and maybe there's something almost religious about it, right? You know, mm-hmm. there's the religious experience, which is a communal mm-hmm. experience and performing, mm-hmm. A ritual. Mm-hmm. And then there's a song or even a reading of a poem mm-hmm. live that can happen. There's that sort of alchemy, even in even like in the Hard Times Writing Workshops. It's like mm-hmm. when you're reading that piece aloud, there's something that, excuse me, there's something that sometimes happens in the room. Yeah. And I don't, it's hard to capture what that is, but it's not about perfection.
Yes, it's about, you're right. I would say it's about like a really core human reflection, maybe, right? Like,
and when somebody means it when they're performing, mm-hmm. you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm always amazed at like performers, like musicians, they're able to go to that place, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
in a song that they perhaps have played for 30 years, they're able to go to that place and still make it feel real. Right. And then the audience feels it too.
Yeah. Yeah. The realness, I think, is a good word.
Yeah.
And I think people are replacing a lot of those religious experiences with concert experience and poetry readings and things. I mean, mm-hmm. you're about to go to Fish, Mexico, Hannah, where thousands of people have spent lots of money to go and be in a essentially, I haven't been to a Fish show, but I'm assuming for some people it feels pretty
elevated. Going to see Fish. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Okay. We're not judging you.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that is it's experience, right? I mean,
and even think about like the mega churches, churches, like they're a rock show. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, mm-hmm. What I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I think there's something about like, they realize that's what moves people is some sort of. Yeah.
But then why do we keep doing this thing where like we're going on ChatGPT to do it? Like, it's like, when are we going to learn that that's not the way? You know what I mean? I guess we're not. Maybe we are, but it's just like people want live experiences in real time with people that they love around them. Like, I think it's that simple. They want to be seen. They want to be heard, just like everything you guys are saying. But it's like our culture is doing it in a way that it's like we're not getting there. Like we're putting people in corners on their computers with their phones, connecting that way. Like, clearly that's not working for anyone. We saw during COVID,
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things you and I talk about, Hannah, is that mental health is declining. So
yes,
let's
stop.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's go to Fish and write a 30-minute story.
Yeah. Like, I think they'll probably feel really connected after all of that. You
can write the first Fish novel.
I guarantee there's somebody out there who's written like a shit ton of Fish fan fiction.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Oh.
Comic books.
Yes.
Romance novels.
Oh my God. Right. Yeah. This might not make it, but so when I taught freshman comp at Emerson, it's a very artsy college, a lot of actors and stuff. And this is like early 90s, right? Right when Fish was like super, when they first broke. And so I would always be like, you need to write an essay about something that you like adore, something that's really like, and you need to argue for why this is the best thing ever. I got more Fish essays.
No, you didn't.
Fish is the best band ever.
Oh my God.
That is my thesis, and here are my supporting points. It was so much fun.
Wait, it's 2025, and I think my fiance could still write the essay. It's just a thing I don't get.
There's something there. There's something there.
Do you remember what the main arguments were?
Oh,
or was it too long ago?
I think it was often like about just the jam band ethos, right? It's sort of like, it's like. They are about the process and not the product, like a little bit what you're talking about. And they just go off on these tangents, and it's really cool because it often references other things, other songs, or the Grateful Dead or whatever. I think also that what happens in those concerts, it's a little bit of utopian moment or an attempt at a utopian moment where everybody treats each other nice and they're, you're sleeping in whatever, right? Often you just guys sleep in a tent, like in the field, but you're having a great old time. And if you need something, somebody has it for you.
Yeah. It's like community.
Like this sort of unstructured, not hierarchical society, right? I think there's something really about that too. And they're really talented musicians. Right? Both of the arguments.
Jane, did your mind just change?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't really.
I feel like you're going to go upstairs and tell Darren that you're going to a fish show and he's going to be like, what did Mike just do to my wife?
My brother, he went to fish for like 5 days in a row this summer, I think. So he had a great time. But that sounds tiring.
No matter how you feel about Taylor Swift or fish, they don't need me. They don't need me. They're killing it.
If it moves you, it moves you.
If it moves you, it moves you. If some random person doesn't like you, you don't need that person. Right?
Yeah.
There may be other talented artists around, but
that nobody's ever heard of.
Exactly.
Hi, Hannah here, interrupting this amazing episode with a quick announcement. I'm so excited to be facilitating a robust, impactful couples psychedelic therapy retreat this March 13th through 16th in the mountains of beautiful Colorado. Join us for an intentional long weekend that includes therapist-led workshops, refreshing downtime in a beautiful home, guided private couples psychedelic sessions, and larger group psychedelic journeys using various psychedelic medicines, and more. If one of your goals this year is to deepen your relationship, reconnect with your partner, or invite new passion and intimacy into your partnership, this retreat is for you. Check the show notes out for more information about the retreat. Okay, so we're asking all our guests this closing question, and that's, what have you been taught or learned or over your lifetime, something that you thought would make a meaningful life or a good life, or something that would make you happy that you have found is not the truth for you?
Oh, interesting. Well, you were talking about you came from West Virginia. I grew up in a suburb of Buffalo, New York.
Wait, are you sad about yesterday?
Yes, I am so freaking sad about yesterday. That was horrible.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The Buffalo Bills lost in the AFC Championship game.
And it was like a crazy game, and everyone in America wanted them to win because no one wants the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. I know so little about sports, but I do know like the Chiefs. Yeah,
exactly. And the Bills have been going to the playoffs for several years now. They went to 4 Super Bowls in a row in the 90s. They lost them all, but I'm okay. It's fine. So I think, and maybe this resonates with you, Hannah. So my dad was a mailman. My mother was a secretary. Neither of them went to college. So it was sort of like, what I learned from them was, definitely should work hard. And then, of course, especially my mother and my mother's mother, my grandmother were, oh my God, you're the youngest boy in an Italian family. You are the chosen one. You're going to be the perfect kid. You're going to be so sensitive and thoughtful and blah, blah, blah. And then my dad and my grandfather are like, don't cry, go hunting. It's just that's basically it. So I think what I learned was a combination of things that I really struggled to sort of reconcile for a very long time. Going back to the idea of therapy in college, I just didn't understand that. Like, I just didn't feel like I was built to be either of those people. And that was really hard, So I think the expectations were from, the mother and grandmother was, you're going to be this sense of thoughtful kid, boy, and then, you're going to be a real man. And so it took a really long time to figure that out. I don't know if this is answering your question, but
it is.
I think what happened was, and really, this is when I started writing, was trying in many ways to reconcile all that. I had these emotions, which I didn't think I was supposed to show. And then I had these expectations that I was trying to live up to. And it's like, how do I do that? And I think for some reason, I don't think I knew this at the time, but I look back on it and I realized that writing was a way for me to sort of live in between those two things. And, like I said earlier, writing totally saved me. I had a lot of emotions. I didn't know how to explore them or to display them or to deal with them, except through anger, because that's what I thought guys did. And so
totally,
I did a lot of stupid shit Can I say that?
You sure can. Yeah.
And so writing helped me stop doing the stupid things I was doing. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why workshops like Hard Times and things like that really resonate with me, because I've felt that experience on my own, right? Like I didn't know I was following a roadmap. I didn't know there was a roadmap. I just was following what I felt like I needed to do. And that was to write, to to mess around with words, to play with stories, to acknowledge my creativity and my sensitivity, for better or for worse, and to accept those,
Yeah.
That was a good one. Usually people don't have the thing that they did to remedy.
Yeah, they don't have the fix it.
Yeah.
But, I think that's a really good one. It just strikes me. I mean, that's been the through line, I think, of this podcast for me so far, is we all have these like images of who we should be. And then we like feel bad when we're not them. But it's like, that's not even like who we want to be. Right. And for you, you're saying like, I like listened to myself and did what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think in some ways it's about the struggle for self-acceptance?
Yeah. And I think it's also like this, like, right. Like as humans, we like have to be a part of the group. That's like how we survive. And so we do what we need to do until we're a part of the group. And then we're like dying inside until one day you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you talk about your mom.
Yeah,
exactly.
This goes back to my.
We're at square one. This has been a really, 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 really great conversation, Mike. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you two have been amazing. Thank you. This is really, I really enjoyed this. This has been, wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. Good to meet you, Hannah.
Yeah, you too. Where can people get in touch with you, or if they're interested in learning more about Lighthouse, where can they do that?
The easiest way is just to go to lighthousewriters.org, the website. I do have a bio there. I'm probably listed on the faculty and as staff member. And you can always, get in touch with us there.
Great. I know that you're like a very humble, whatever, but
whatever.
I should have a website.
I was just going to say, if people wanted to read some of your poetry or read one of your nonfiction books, is there a way to do that?
Good luck finding it. No. I think, so I have a couple of poetry books out. You can probably find them online. It's probably the best way. Sometimes they're at Tattered Cover,
cool.
Maybe at Boulder Bookstore. I'm a big mountain biker, as I think maybe we mentioned earlier. And I just, for the heck of it, I ended up writing this book about mountain biking the Colorado Trail, which starts in Littleton and goes all the way to Durango. I bike packed it, so I carried all my stuff on my bike. Mostly walked. I walked alongside my bike for miles and miles. So I wrote a book about it. It's a little bit of a memoir, a little bit of a how-to. I think you can probably find at most bookstores. I think you should be able to find it at REI as well. Yeah. Cool.
Is your pen name Michael Henry or Mike Henry?
For some reason, when I got my first book published, I thought, Michael Henry is such a generic name. So I was Michael J. Henry.
Oh,
so that, which is like, that's more unique. So I think all my publications are under Michael J. Henry.
Cool.
Don't forget that J, people. That J will take you there.
Put that in there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, so much.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A Green Roof Studios production. This episode was recorded and produced by Hannah Buzzo and Jane Thatcher Hahn.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. Your support helps us reach more listeners. And for every rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we're donating to a charity connected to one of our guests. Check the show notes for more details on this month's featured charity.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
You really know how to stroke my ego to get me to do extra work, right?
What's your sign?
Scorpio?
That makes sense.
Oh, really? Oh, dear. In a good way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love all the Scorpios I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've just recently gotten to know Scorpios, so yeah, it's a great thing.
So what are Scorpio? I don't know really.
Well, I don't know that much about them either. I just mostly only know about my sign because Leos are very into Leos.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I've always heard that Scorpios are
you, like I can tell you a 2-minute thing, and we can cut this.
We just got a book right there.
You just got a book. I've always heard that too, but all the Scorpios I know are not that volatile.
Yeah,
or maybe I'm not.
No. Yeah.
Right? Like, it could be that I'm not close
Can be,
enough.
but high threshold.
High threshold, yes. You don't strike me as a volatile person.
No, I could be, though,
if you need
I
it
have a
to.
really high threshold, though.
Yeah.
I'm usually just goofy.
Okay, so Scorpio takes us to the depths. This is a complex and intense sign concerned with process of transformation. The life's purpose of the Scorpio is to develop resilience. You will act with passion, intensity, and stoic courage.
Wow.
Wow.
Scorpios are really cool.
There is self-control, passionate, emotional honesty.
Poet.
Interesting. All right.
How do you feel now?
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. I want to be that. Oh, man. Oh, the final question. I'm scared. All right.
Oh, yeah. The final question was not, do you want me to read your birth sign? Okay. Final question.